Party Popper, thank you for subscribing. Your support means the world. It's what keeps us going. Sharing powerful stories that move hearts and reveal truths most are afraid to speak. Speech Balloon, if you've just joined us. Welcome to a place where every story is a journey through hidden truths, unspoken emotions, and endings that leave you breathless. Backhand index pointing right, still watching but haven't subscribed yet? Now's your moment. Hit that subscribe button, because what's coming next will pull you in deeper than you ever expected. Bell, and don't forget to tap the bell, so you'll never miss the next chapter that just might change everything. Right arrow, one click. One emotional journey. Come with us. His breath scorched my neck, uneven and desperate, as if he had been suffocating in silence. My back pressed against the kitchen counter, the edge digging into my hips as his hands tightened around my waist. Fingers quivering yet resolute, the air was thick with his sandalwood cologne, mingling with the sting of my own sweat. His body pressed against mine, a blend of strength and desperation, and I sensed the tension in him as he sought to meld into me. It struggled, faltering in the beginning, frustration etched on his forehead, a flicker of intensity in his eyes. I leaned in and whispered, "Try again." My voice was a whisper, fragile, while his eyes held mine, filled with a haunting urgency. My thighs trembled as I guided him, and when it finally happened, the pressure surged, a slow burn that stole my breath away. His rhythm faltered as if he feared shattering me, yet I craved the wild abandon. I craved a connection, raw and unfiltered, even if it led me astray. At 38, I never thought I'd find myself here, entangled with my daughter's boyfriend, Jason. It feels surreal, crossing a line I never intended to approach. I'm Lauren, a single mom who has devoted the last 10 years to raising my daughter Hannah, now 20, all while managing the chaos of our small home. Hannah is my universe, a fierce light with her father's smile. Jason arrived 6 months back, 24, broad-shouldered, his quiet charm igniting the atmosphere. He treats her well, always holding doors, chuckling at her jokes, but that night in the kitchen, his gaze was elsewhere. I was the one. It began with a simple spark. Jason would arrive for dinner, assist with the dishes, and stay to share stories about his construction job or reminisce over my old photo albums. Hannah often filled the space, but there were moments when work pulled her away, leaving just the two of us in silence. He'd steal glances at me, subtle yet lingering, a moment that felt charged with unspoken words. I convinced myself it was insignificant. I refused to be defined by those expectations. I bear stretch marks and a mortgage, not a dream life. Yet in his gaze there was an insatiable hunger that stirred a fire within me, one I believed had been extinguished forever. How would you react if your daughter's boyfriend unexpectedly kissed you? If he leaned in one night, fueled by too many beers, and pressed his lips to yours, soft yet purposeful, as if he'd been yearning for this moment for weeks? That's how it all unfolded, just 2 nights before the kitchen incident. I pushed him away, Jason said, his voice trembling. No, but my voice faltered, and he noticed the tremor in my hands, the silence where I could have screamed or struck back. I should have told Hannah the truth. I should have thrown him out, yet I held back. That silence, that choice, it transformed everything. The night in the kitchen unfolded unexpectedly. Hannah was at a friend's house when Jason unexpectedly arrived to retrieve his jacket. He was too near, his arm grazing mine as he reached for it. I could have pulled away. I just didn't. As his lips met mine once more, I surrendered, allowing his hands to explore my skin, the counter supporting me as we stumbled through our urgency, raw and unrefined. It was far from smooth or perfect. It was unrefined, chaotic humanity. As it ended, his forehead against mine, our breaths mingling, I felt a surge of life, a spark I hadn't known in years. Yet guilt slithered in, cutting deep like a knife. I can't bear this weight any longer. Every time I see Hannah, the weight of my actions crashes down on me. Yet I allowed him another chance. Now the point of no return has arrived. Subscribe to my channel to keep the captivating true stories coming your way. Make sure to watch this video until the very end and give it a like. The story is bound to captivate you. Your support means everything. Hit that like button. Once, I believed that loneliness was simply a facet of motherhood, an inevitable shadow of aging. At 38, I had grown accustomed to the silence of the house after Hannah departed for work, the emptiness of my oversized bed, and the fading glances from men who once noticed me. I wasn't truly unhappy, not in the way you might think. I had my job at the library, my garden, my daughter, each a thread in the fabric of my life, woven together with love and purpose. Yet there was a deep ache, a void I couldn't identify until Jason entered my life. He looked at me, truly looked, igniting a feeling I hadn't experienced in ages. Hannah encountered him at the coffee shop where she poured her heart into every cup. She burst through the door, laughter spilling from her lips, her eyes sparkling as she recounted the moment. A stranger who had left her a $10 tip and a note with his number, igniting a rush of excitement within her. At 24, Jason's hands were rough from his construction job, his shoulders broad and strong, a testament to his hard work. He arrived with flowers for Hannah, yet his smile for me lingered, a warm "Hey Lauren, how's your day?" That felt deeper than it should have. I convinced myself it was merely politeness. He was a great kid, perfect for Hannah. I began to anticipate his visits, the way he would lean against the counter, sharing snippets of his day as I chopped vegetables for dinner. Hannah, a night owl on late shifts, often left Jason lingering in the shadows after she departed. He'd step in to mend a leaky faucet or carry groceries, small gestures that felt like a lifeline. One night, he lingered to watch a movie, an action flick that would have made Hannah cringe. We sat on the couch, a cautious foot between us, yet his warmth enveloped me, his arm brushing against mine, igniting a spark. His laughter lit up his eyes, and I found myself unable to look away. "You're easy to talk to, Lauren," he said, and my heart raced. I felt my voice falter, unable to respond. It wasn't merely his attention. It was how he truly listened as I shared my day, how he recognized the new scarf draped around my neck, how his hand grazed mine in that fleeting moment as he handed me a dish. Every touch ignited a fire, initially unintended, but soon undeniable. His eyes would linger on me while I stirred the soup or folded the laundry, and that gaze had shifted, no longer just polite. It was ravenous, a mix of fear and exhilaration coursing through me. I lay awake at night, convincing myself it was all in my head, that I was foolish for even considering it. He belonged to Hannah, too young for me, yet in that moment I realized how long it had been since I felt desired. Jason's gaze reflected a woman I thought I'd lost forever. One evening he knelt beside me, our hands deep in the earth, as we planted tulip bulbs in the backyard. Hannah was at work, the cool air wrapping around her, each breath a ghostly whisper in the chill. We knelt in the dirt side by side, and when our hands met, we held on tightly, refusing to let go. His fingers brushed my skin, rough and electric, and my pulse raced in my throat. "You're good at this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, and I felt the weight of his words, knowing he meant so much more than gardening. I gazed into his eyes, so close, so intense, and the urge to lean in overwhelmed me. I just didn't. I stood, dusted off my jeans, and urged, "We need to go inside now." My voice trembled, and he caught it. That night, it became unmistakable. Loneliness consumed me, and Jason stepped in to occupy a void I had never acknowledged. I adored Hannah above all else, yet I craved something she could never provide. Jason stood there, his silent offer hanging in the air, heavy with unspoken emotion. I promised myself I would be tougher, that I would stay away. Yet, with each step he took across my threshold, my determination shattered just a bit more. The days began to merge, each one weighed down by unspoken words. Jason found himself at the house frequently, even in Hannah's absence. He arrived with an excuse or a tool, while Hannah borrowed a question about her schedule. Yet, his gaze always lingered on mine, stretching the moment into something electric. I found myself adjusting my hair, selecting a shirt that embraced my curves, all in anticipation of his arrival. I loathed myself for it, yet I was powerless to change. It felt like teetering on the brink, fully aware of the pain that awaited below, yet yearning to plunge into the unknown. We began uncovering excuses to isolate ourselves. He'd volunteer for chores, changing a light bulb, shifting boxes in the garage, and I'd accept his help, even when it wasn't necessary. In the garage one afternoon, we sifted through old camping gear, dust swirling in the air, mingling with the scent of his sweat. Our arms collided as we both reached for the same box, and I froze, overwhelmed by the heat of his skin. He remained still, frozen in place. "Sorry," he muttered, his voice gravelly, refusing to step back. I should have brushed it aside, shifted the focus. I turned my gaze toward him. His eyes were deep and intense, as if he was holding his breath, waiting for me to make a choice. My breath hitched and I averted my gaze, hands trembling as I reached for another box, the air thick with tension, like a storm on the verge of unleashing its fury. He began to open up, revealing little secrets and his hidden vulnerabilities. One night, as we sat over coffee at the kitchen table, he opened up about his dad, the man who vanished when he was just 10, forcing him to step up and care for his younger brother. "I don't discuss this with Hannah," he murmured, his fingers tracing the rim of his mug, a shadow crossing his face. "She just doesn't understand." I nodded, my chest constricting, fully aware of the weight of carrying a family alone, of being the one who must be strong. I shared the story of my ex, how he walked away when Hannah was just 3. I had to learn to fix pipes and manage bills, driven by necessity. Jason listened, truly listened, his gaze both gentle and piercing, and I felt exposed in a way that sent shivers down my spine. The glances intensified. As I washed the dishes, his gaze pressed down on me, intense and unyielding. He brushed past me in the hallway, his shoulder barely touching mine, his hand lingering on my arm for just a heartbeat. "Are you all right, Alan?" His voice was barely a whisper, and I nodded, my throat tight, revealing the truth: I wasn't okay. I was coming apart at the seams. Each moment we shared drew me nearer to an irreversible truth, and deep down I understood it. Yet, I continued to welcome him, allowing him to breach my defenses. It was a Tuesday night when the almost moment arrived. Hannah toiled late into the night, while Jason lingered, claiming he was there to wait for her. We sat on the couch, a movie flickering in the background, but our eyes were locked on each other, lost in a moment that felt electric. He leaned in, our knees touching, and I stayed right there. The room closed in, the air thick with heat. He leaned closer, his breath brushing against me, a mix of coffee and mint, while the stubble on his jaw caught my eye. "Ellen." His voice was barely a whisper, and my name hung in the air like a question, a desperate plea. My heart raced, heavy with the intensity of his closeness, an undeniable force drawing me in. His hand found my cheek, his thumb grazing my skin. I leaned into the touch for a fleeting moment before pulling away, my breath uneven. "We can't," I said, my voice trembling, as if I were pleading with my own heart to believe it. He nodded, his gaze locked onto mine. As he walked away that night, the air between us crackled with a thrilling, perilous tension. I lay awake, my body vibrating, while my mind erupted in chaos. I was the mother of Hannah. I was meant to shield her, not shatter her trust. Jason had burrowed deep within me, and I was lost in how to free myself from his grip. It all unraveled on a Thursday, a stifling night when the air wrapped around you like a heavy shroud. Hannah was lost in the music at a concert with friends, the clock ticking toward midnight. Jason reached out, asking if he could bring back the hoodie Hannah had forgotten at his place. I should have refused, told him to come back tomorrow. Instead, I typed sure, my hands shaking as I pressed send. He arrived with the hoodie draped over his shoulder, but his gaze pierced through me, as if he had come for something far more significant. In the kitchen, we lingered, the hoodie abandoned on the counter, a silent witness to the moment. He was near, dangerously near, his warmth enveloping me. "Lauren," he murmured, his voice low and gravelly. "You haunt my thoughts endlessly." My breath caught in my throat, a desperate urge to tell him to go, to make it stop, but the words remained trapped inside me. He moved in, his hand grazing my arm, and a shiver ran through his fingers. The very struggle I was battling against. "Just say you don't want this." His gaze locked onto mine, and he whispered that he would leave, but the words caught in my throat. The truth seared within me, a shame I could not escape. I can't tell who made the first move. Perhaps it was my body inching closer to his, or his pull drawing me in. His lips crashed against mine, a desperate mix of salt and longing. His hands found my waist, drawing me close, and I felt the solid contours of his body, the power in his hold. My back slammed against the counter, the edge biting into my hips, while his breath scorched my neck, ragged and desperate, as if he were coming apart at the seams. He lifted me, my thighs parting as I wrapped my legs around him, feeling him thick and straining, pressing against me. At first, it was a struggle, his imposing size, my tight nerves, the awkward urgency of it all. He paused, brow furrowed, and I caught the unspoken question in his gaze. "Try again," I whispered, my voice trembling as I shifted closer, my hands gripping his shoulders tightly. As he pressed in, a wave of pressure stole my breath, leaving me with a consuming fullness that made my thighs tremble. His rhythm faltered, tentative at first, then surged, propelled by an unstoppable force within us both. My fingers sank into his back, tracing the hard lines of muscle, the heat of his sweat against my skin. His mouth pressed against my throat, breath uneven, and I surrendered completely, allowing everything to fade away, consumed by the heat of him, the heaviness, the primal hunger that enveloped us. It lacked elegance and flawlessness, chaotic in its essence. Our breaths mismatched, my hip colliding with the counter, his hands awkwardly seeking to draw me nearer. Yet it was undeniably authentic. Every sensation was electric, the roughness of his stubble, the heat of his hands, the tremor of his body as I gripped him tighter. When it ended, he stayed close, our foreheads touching, breaths intertwining. And in that fleeting moment I felt complete, like a woman once more, not merely a mother or a ghost. Then reality struck, harsh and unforgiving. I slipped from the counter, my legs trembling, and he stared at me, his eyes wide, as if he felt the burden of it all as well. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice rough. I shook my head. I wasn't sorry, not yet. Fear gripped me, guilt surged within. "We never should have done that," I whispered. Yet it echoed emptily, for both of us had longed for it. His hand grazed my cheek, a fleeting touch, but I recoiled, my heart racing wildly. "You need to go," I said. He nodded, snatching the hoodie, his shoulders tight with unspoken fear. As the door clicked shut, I crumpled to the floor, hands shielding my face, his lingering scent haunting my skin. I had stepped over a boundary that was now forever behind me, and the most haunting part was the uncertainty of my own regret. The guilt surged, creeping in slowly before engulfing everything. I stood in the shower that night, scrubbing my skin until it burned, but the memory of Jason's hands, his breath, and my body's reaction clung to me like a shadow. Hannah's face haunted me, her trusting smile etched in my mind, the memory of her curling up next to Jason on the couch tightening my gut. I had betrayed her, my own daughter, for a fleeting sense of desire. Even in my self-loathing, I couldn't quell the hunger, the way my skin buzzed at the mere thought of him. I felt as if I had emerged from a long, dark slumber, and there was no way to return to that oblivion. The next morning, Hannah stood in the kitchen pouring cereal, her voice alive with excitement as she recounted her concert. I nodded, my throat constricted, terrified she'd notice the truth in my eyes or the tremor in my hands as I poured the coffee. "Are you all right, Mom?" She tilted her head, her gaze piercing. I managed a smile, my voice barely a whisper as I mumbled about a restless night. As Jason arrived that afternoon, I steeled myself for the tension, but he was just as he had always been, comfortable with Hannah, courteous towards me. Excessively courteous. His gaze barely brushed against mine, but when it did, a flicker ignited. Was it guilt or perhaps fear? It hurt to see him seamlessly return to his role as I fell apart. We avoided the subject initially, yet he kept showing up. The air crackled with tension, a pulse beneath every look, every fleeting brush of skin. One evening, Hannah sat alone in her room while Jason and I struggled with the weight of the laundry as we climbed the stairs. In the hallway, his arm grazed mine, igniting that familiar spark, sharp, electric, and perilous. He paused, jaw clenched, and whispered, "I can't stop thinking about it." My heart raced, and I longed to tell him to be quiet and go away. Yet my body betrayed me, leaning closer to him. "Don't," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Not here." But my eyes revealed everything, and he noticed it. The desire, the vulnerability. Once more, it unfolded in the garage a week later. Hannah was at work when Jason arrived to repair the shelf I had mentioned. We stood in silence, the air heavy with the scent of sawdust and his sweat. He hammered nails, sweat-soaked shirt clinging to his back, while my pulse thundered in my ears. As he turned and caught my gaze, the hammer fell, echoing the silence that followed. Silence enveloped us. He moved across the room, his hands gripping my waist, and I surrendered to his kiss, feeling his body pin me against the workbench. This time it was swift and frantic, our breaths ragged, my fingers gripping his hair tightly. As it ended, we gasped for breath, and the shame crashed over me like a fierce wave. "This has to stop," I said, my voice trembling. He nodded, yet his eyes betrayed a storm within, a struggle that mirrored my own, the undeniable pull, the heart-wrenching impossibility of release. A few days later, the narrow escape unfolded. Hannah returned home unexpectedly, her shift cut short. As Jason and I lingered in the living room, our proximity charged, whispers barely escaping our lips. She entered and I recoiled, my heart racing in my throat. "Hey, you too," she said, unaware, as her bag fell to the ground. Jason's laughter echoed, too loud, while I focused on the dishes, my hands shaking uncontrollably. That night I lay awake, haunted by the image of her face, envisioning her tears, her fury. I contemplated ending it, ready to tell Jason we were finished, but the fear of losing that intoxicating feeling of being seen and desired gripped my heart. Trapped in a web of guilt and longing, each day loomed like a ticking bomb, threatening to explode into chaos. By the week's end, I was unraveling, flinching at every noise, dodging Jason's eyes. He leaned in, voice barely above a whisper, as Hannah's laughter echoed from the shower. "Lauren, we have to solve this now." But I shook my head, my eyes aflame with emotion. "This can't go on any longer." I spoke, my voice a mere whisper. "Someone will uncover the truth." In that moment, the truth hit me hard. The truth loomed large, painfully near, impossible to ignore. Time was running out. The truth emerged, but not in the way I had dreaded. It wasn't Hannah discovering us in a fleeting embrace, or stumbling upon a rogue message. The silence was unbearable, shattering me in ways I never saw coming. 2 weeks after that night in the garage, Jason began to drift away. He remained in the house, still Hannah's boyfriend, yet an undeniable change lingered in the air. His smiles grew strained, his glances barely lingering. In our solitude, he remained distant, hands tucked away, voice sharp and restrained. "We're okay, aren't we?" he would utter. His gaze avoided mine, and the distance between us turned icy and irrevocable. I should have felt a wave of relief wash over me. Every logical part of me screamed that this was the only way to halt it all, to shield Hannah from the truth, to prevent our world from crumbling. The rejection pierced deep, leaving a raw ache within. I had sacrificed everything, blurred boundaries that could never be restored. And now he treated me as if those moments were mere shadows, erased from existence. At night I relive his hands on my skin, his breath in my ear, the shame intertwined with longing, leaving me restless and exposed. I longed to face him, to extract the truth, yet fear gripped me, paralyzing my resolve. That night altered the course of our lives forever. Hannah was at work when Jason appeared unexpectedly, his jaw clenched, eyes dark with unspoken tension. In the kitchen, I chopped onions, the knife trembling in my grip. He lingered in the doorway, a quiet presence until our eyes met. "It's time we have a conversation, Alan." His voice was low, strained, barely a whisper. My stomach plummeted, yet I nodded, placing the knife aside, my hands shaking uncontrollably. He moved nearer, just out of reach, yet his presence loomed over me, thick and charged like an impending storm. "I can't do this anymore," he said, and the words landed like a blow. I believed I could, but it's breaking me inside. His voice trembled, and in that moment I recognized it. The guilt etched in his eyes, the heavy burden he bore. "I love Hannah," he said, and my heart clenched, for I recognized the truth in his words, a truth I had always felt deep within. "Yet I can't shake this feeling for you, and it's driving me wild. I can't bear this weight any longer." I wanted to scream, to tell him he had no right to say that, especially after he pulled away, after he made me feel like I was nothing but a mistake. But my throat constricted, and all I could muster was, "So what made you begin this?" My voice cut through the air, filled with accusation, and he recoiled, raking his fingers through his hair. "I don't know," he said, his voice trembling. "You were everything. Here. You saw me, Lauren, in a way she never could, but this isn't right. It's not fair to her, or to you." His gaze pierced through me, raw and vulnerable, and in that moment, I understood he wasn't merely ending it. He was shielding me, shielding Hannah, even as it tore him apart. "I'm going to tell her I need a break," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "It's not about us, only I crave the solitude to discover who I truly am." I stood there, my heart racing, the air heavy with unspoken words. "What about me?" I called out to my voice, a mere whisper trembling in the air. He remained silent, his gaze heavy with regret, before he turned and walked out the door. I collapsed onto the floor, the sharp sting of the onion blurring my vision, yet the tears flowed for another reason entirely. I had lost something I never should have desired, and the price was still haunting me. Hannah returned home the following day, her silence heavier than before. "Jason's acting strange," she murmured, her spoon clinking against the cup, her brow knitted tightly. "He claims he needs time to reflect." My heart raced, but I nodded, whispering something about young men and their fear of commitment. She remained unaware, but the pain in her eyes pierced me like a dagger. My actions, though indirect, had set off a chain reaction, and now she was suffering the consequences. Jason vanished from my life. Hannah found solace in work and the company of friends, steering clear of the house that felt like a weight on her heart. Once more I found myself in solitude, the silence deafening. I lay awake, haunted by each moment, loathing myself for the thrill that clung to me beneath the weight of guilt. I had crossed an unforgiving line, yet for a fleeting night, a night steeped in recklessness and shame, I felt the pulse of life.